I will declare the meeting open. So welcome everybody to the 2021 AGM of Toy Libraries Australia. I'd like to welcome everybody and acknowledge the Indigenous people of all the various countries that we're on. I'm in Wurundjeri land and I acknowledge their links to country and how they've played and looked after the land for many thousands of years. Welcome to everybody who's joined, and great to see so many of the committee and some other members as well here today. We have put the apologies into the chat, so if anybody else knows of any apologies, you can also put those on there as well. I'm not sure we haven't got more than one person from any toy library, I don't think, have we? Two. For those where there's two of you from the same toy library, can you just make sure which you work out who's going to be voting on behalf of your toy library, so you're not doubling up. So the first order of business is to confirm the minutes of the previous annual general meeting as a true and accurate record. So they were circulated with the email you will have received earlier in the week. Can I get somebody to, or are there any questions around the minutes of the last meeting? If not, can I get somebody who was at the AGM last year to move it? So Claire's moving it. And can we get a seconder? Belinda's seconding it. And I will try to get the technology to work. So you should now see in front of you a poll to accept the minutes of the last meeting. So if you're voting on behalf of your toy library, can you please vote yes, no, or abstain if you weren't here last year. Okay, so we've got 87% voted yes, 13% voted abstain. So that motion is, sorry, I can share the results as well. So that motion is passed. So what we'd like to do now is to move on to the committee reports. So I'll start off. I'm going to then hand over to Sarah and Lou and Kim when she joins us. Actually, maybe I'll just hand over straight to Sarah first. Are you no longer co-host, Sarah? Do you want me to just share the screen for you?
Yes, please.
There you go. Can you see that okay?
I can. Okay. Hello, everyone. So the manager's report for this year, obviously last year was not the year that we wanted. In February, we were all going really well and thinking we were in for a good year, and then obviously COVID happened. And it didn't turn out like any of us had planned, but there were some positives. Are you going to have to, sorry everybody, are you going to have to press, am I going to have to tell you when to click through, Deb? Is that all right?
We can do it that way, yep.
Okay. So we still get asked by people why they pay TLA membership and what exactly TLA does for their toy library. So I've just put it here in this slide. So obviously you get access to discounted prices through Toy Community, provide access to affordable group insurance. There's up-to-date information, resources and advice in the newsletter, the discussion groups and in the members hub as well on the website. Member support from both myself and also all the knowledgeable TLA committee of volunteers, assistance in the establishment of new toy libraries, networking opportunities, including the training days like the weekend we have coming up, and networking meetings, and inclusion in the online Find a Toy Library directory. with over 2,000 monthly visitors, which might have actually grown because we did quite a bit of work in growing that sort of around mid last year. So that's probably doing even better than we had there. You could jump to the next slide, sorry, Deb, thank you. So with training and networking, this year we are lucky enough to have a seminar this weekend in Victoria. Unfortunately, our West Australian friends won't be able to join us in person, but we know that they'll be with us via Zoom, hopefully, and in spirit. But so for the rest of us, for the East Coast, all training and networking within 2020 was presented by way of webinar. Some of these included the operating models, so click and collect or delivery. And on that one, I wanted to say a big thank you to Beck Laylaw, because she did a lot of the grunt work in figuring out what was actually required to switch to those models, as well as the team at MyBase, or Michelle at MyBase, and the team at Settles. We had our AGM and awards via Zoom, and that's why we're doing it again this year, because we found it to be a good way to present. The insurance Q&A, reopening advice, media training, and the grants workshop as well. So next one, on to grants. Speaking of grants, we were able to pass on insurance discounts thanks to the government grants received. So thank you, Victorian Government, for giving us that income, so we were able to pass on the discounts to all our toy libraries. There are more to come though. So Facebook awarded us with a group grant, which is for our members, and it will be used to assist with fees for 2021. We're still working on exactly what that will mean, but it will be a significant discount of up to around 30% on your membership fees for everybody. And as a not-for-profit peak body, our aim is to secure as much funding as we can to be passed on to all of you. So TLA doesn't, any grant that TLA goes for and is successful in, we look at immediate ways in which to pass that on to, to make life easier and to, grow the scope for all of you. The next slide is policies. So last year, as I said earlier, was totally different than what we thought. Prior to March last year, there was no such thing as a COVID-19 folder in the Members Hub. And now I had looked through, and we have 50 new policies, procedures, templates and documents to assist us with navigating our new way of life. We basically watched restrictions day and night and prowled through the, the documents that were presented and tried to make sense of them, and spoke to government departments and made sure that we were on top of it and passed that all on to you to make sure that you guys didn't have to. And speaking of government, the next slide shows at the start of the pandemic, toy libraries really slipped between the cracks. We didn't know where we fell into, and I'm not sure if some of you remember in the early days in Victoria, there was that horrible day when we saw that they said book libraries could reopen, but toy libraries must remain closed. And when we spoke to DHHS and got onto their infection prevention cell, we realised it was because they saw us as a type of play centre. So clarifying that and showing them how stringent we were and all the guidelines and policies we had in place. By the end of the pandemic, we had clear guidance, and Mr. Dan Andrews mentioned toy libraries in the press 3 times, which we're all very excited about. You should have seen the TLA committee page that day. We were all over the moon that we got mentioned so many times. And from then on, toy libraries seem to have a clear distinction in regards to restrictions and where we lie, which makes life a lot easier for all of us. So you are not alone. This slide, I know that a lot of you are worried about where you're currently sitting and the amount of members you've dropped, but going through the insurance and the membership numbers, I noticed that almost all toy libraries around the country, especially in Victoria, have experienced a decline in member numbers. So on average, the drop was about 10 to 15%. But as an example, for sort of the larger toy libraries, it equated to, 100 or more members. So it was a really big drop, but we are working up and working towards getting back on track to where we were. And there are a few that were lucky enough to increase the numbers. And they're just a demonstration, an example of what will come for all of us if we continue. So don't worry, don't stress, we're getting there, and we will be back on top of things soon. And the final one to say thank you to all of you. The discussion group was amazing last year. You know, everyone was so supportive and generous in the information they were finding out, and just wanting to share it with everyone and help each other as much as we could. And it was really sort of, you know, gave me warm fuzzies and heartwarming, and it was lovely to see. And we should all be proud of ourselves, because we are a great bunch of humans. And next slide is questions. So I don't know if anyone has any questions for me on that. I will be talking about insurance later. Or if you are watching the recording, you can obviously email me with any questions you have, but just a reminder that I am always here to help you. And that is
within 48 hours.
Within 48 hours, yes. Yes, I am here to help within 48 hours.
Does anybody have any questions for Sarah? If not, I might hand over to Kim to give us an update on toy community and the supplier situation. Obviously, COVID's made quite a difference here. I'll just stop sharing my screens. Can you unmute yourself? There you go.
I unmuted myself. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so it's been certainly an interesting 12 months with toy community. Well, we saw a lot of toy libraries go quiet there for a while, and realised that they've got money, that they were at home and they had time, and so they had time to spend that money, particularly sort of lots of grants coming through still. We saw quite a lot of issues with suppliers during the COVID time, but following that now, even we're still seeing some issues. So we're seeing some of the prices going up because of the Australian dollar being affected, the freight prices increasing 300 to 500% in some cases. We're seeing some suppliers have third parties doing all of their distribution and packing, and what they think's on the website isn't necessarily in the warehouse. So when I check availability and I come back to you and I send you an invoice and go, this is all what's there, we've had quite a few cases where it hasn't been that case. So my apologies, I do the best that I can with the information that I do have, but there seems to be quite a few gaps at this point in time. Even the back orders, when they're sort of saying that things are due to come in at the end of this month, are being delayed significantly. And that's because of a lot of the toys coming from COVID affected countries. So for example, Little Smiles have all the step 2 stuff coming out of America, and they've certainly been affected in the manufacturing plants, but also then trying to get those shipments loaded onto the ships. And so that's all sort of taking steps that are delaying everything coming over here. But we're slowly seeing things come through, which is really exciting. The toy fair this year was all done digitally, which really wasn't exciting at all. Most of that fun is walking around and feeling and touching everything and experiencing all the different toys. We did speak with the Toy Association, and they have recently done a gift fair up in Sydney, and people have been able to go and show toys and that sort of stuff up there. So hopefully in the next sort of few months we'll start to see gift fairs, and that's open up down here in Melbourne as well. So some of the suppliers can show what's coming out and what's new and exciting. So I'll try and do the best I can to give you as much information as I can. We're always still trying to get as many discounts and sales for you all as much as possible to get your money to go as far as possible as well. So we're trying our best. If anyone has any questions or concerns about anything with Toy Library, any thoughts, please let me know.
Great, thank you, Kim. Yeah, very difficult year in terms of supply type issues for the toys. And next is Lou Bell, who's our WA Development Officer. I think most of you have probably seen her about the Facebook group. She's been with us now for a bit over a year, probably about 15 months or so, funded by a grant from Lottery West. So thank you very much to Lottery West for that funding. So Lou, do you want to give us an update around what's been happening in the West?
Yeah, the update changing by the minute, isn't it? So yes, last year was obviously an interesting year to start a project in WA with obviously significantly COVID affected, but we did manage to have lots of highlights in WA. So particularly we did, as Sarah mentioned, manage to have a conference, and as people that have attended conferences, training days before know that just generates a lot of enthusiasm and the education shared, the connections made. So the roll-on effect from the training days is really significant in terms of the connections, as well as the understanding that people gather from attending. We had really great feedback from the training day. And rolling on from that, that's assisted us to start some tour and talk. So we're doing smaller networking sessions, looking at connecting both rural and remote people via Zoom, and then also in-person ones within the metropolitan area, and exploring options for smaller regional ones to come together. Also, this work started last year, but it came through this year that we managed to get some nice political recognition in WA with the prior to the election, our illustrious West Australian leader, Ms. Premier McGowan, wrote that in a letter to us that the government recognises the importance of toy libraries as a valuable community resource. So that after some work that we've been doing around that, we've managed to get the state political recognition as well as some funding. So individual toy libraries worked really hard, and we also worked collectively. So over here in the West, we're doing a lot of that. There's lots of individuals, incredible people working incredibly hard in their toy libraries, but we're also coming together to share that collective knowledge and to work as a team together. So working on multiple levels. We also, I have been working with numerous toy libraries working on what we've defined as our toy library health checklist. So that's been really useful for toy libraries, as I guess when toy libraries wonder where to go next. And so based on the quality standards, we work together on a health checklist. And that means that the committee is able to make some more strategic kind of planning. They're able to base what they do next, and to use a reflective practice, and to really use best practice as evidence through the quality standards that have been developed from TLA previously and internationally prior to that. So we're working on multiple levels over here, working with individual libraries, working as a collective. We've seen, our Facebook group continues to grow in our West Australian one, and lots, as Sarah said, lots of just supported sharing, and that really lovely kind of feeling of, the warm fuzzies, just how incredible people are that are involved in toy libraries. And also personally, I need to thank the West Australian Steering Committee. So there's a steering committee over here. Last year I was guided by Karis, and Annie and Heidi. I think Karis is maybe the only one I haven't checked at the minute. And we've more recently also had Kiara and Jane join us. Thank you to them for just their commitment and their assistance and ongoing support always.
Thank you so much, Lou. So I've just got a couple more things from the TLA committee. We also received this year DGR status. So some of you will know that's a tax status that means when people donate to Toy Libraries Australia, they can now get a tax deduction. It required a legislation to go through Parliament for us to receive that, and it has taken several years of lobbying. Thank you, Jane, for the connections that you made through the Liberal representation in the inner east of Melbourne was very helpful, and letters to treasurers and the like, and we finally got that through last year. What that means is that we're now in a position, and we're just starting to pilot auspicing grants for smaller toy libraries that, or for any size toy library that doesn't itself has DGR status. So you'll be seeing that coming through in more details around how your toy library could be auspiced for a grant that requires DGR status. And we'll start thinking about what we can do sort of for end of financial year. Some of the larger toy libraries that do have DGR status have been doing sort of end of financial year donation campaigns and the like. So all of those kinds of things are now possible to more toy libraries. We've also been working for a couple of years with the Trawalla Foundation and their Toywell program. Some of you may have heard that mentioned previously. Through 2019 and the start of 2020, that was being run by Save the Children Australia, and it's a program to set up the small free toy libraries in Community Hubs Australia sites, which are based on school premises within areas of disadvantage. At the end of that pilot, it was decided that Save the Children wasn't the right fit to be sort of leading the ongoing rollout of the Toywell model. So as of this year, Toy Libraries Australia has taken over that role, and we're currently in the process of supporting the 5 Toywell sites that were already operating, and also that'll be rolling out to probably about another 5 sites this year. And we're also in discussions for another piece of funding that might allow that model to roll out even further. So these are a good sort of supplement to our community toy library model, because it's working with the type of communities that we've really struggled in the community toy library model to access. And really, you know, one of our goals at Toy Libraries Australia is to make sure everybody has access to a toy library no matter where they are. And that's really a great way that we're still tweaking the model, you know, but it's a free small scale toy library in the place where diverse communities are living. And then finally, just a plug for World Play Day, which is in about 4 weeks' time. Again, the International Toy Library Association meeting was a week ago. We're in I know Sarah was saying we'll get there, but we're in a very, very lucky position. Nearly everybody else on the call, their toy library was still totally closed and had been closed for most of 2020. So they were looking to us for examples of how to come out of COVID. We'll be circulating some materials that have been developed via social media and the like, where the theme is Play is Healthy, which is the theme it was going to be last year before COVID hit. And there's a presentation that's been developed that shows ideas for those of us, like most of Australia, who are free of too many restrictions, but then also suggestions for toy libraries in more restricted areas. So that was the things I had on my agenda. Is there anybody else from the committee who wants to report back on anything? Heather or Belinda or anybody else from any other states? No, I'm not getting any nods. So I think if there's nobody else, I'll put the poll up to ask for approval of the report from the committee. So the motion is that the committee's report be accepted by the meeting. So you should be able to see the poll now. If those of you who are voting on behalf of your toy library can vote, please. I'll just give you one more second and I'll end the polling. and so we had 16 yes and 2 abstain, so 100% for again. So I'll stop the sharing. And sorry, let me just close it down. So the next item on the agenda is the finance report, which I will just get up. So while Ritu unmutes herself, I will share the screen again.
Thank you, Debbie.
You can see that, Ritu?
Yes, thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Ritu Gupta, the Treasurer for Toy Libraries Australia. The presentation here is the financial highlights that shows the P&L and the balance sheet, the detailed financials, and the accountant's review letter is part of the AGM note that was circulated. Coming back to the slide, this shows the profit and loss for toy libraries and toy communities in separate sections. The first bit shows the toy libraries revenue, which is up roughly 30% on 2019, the previous year, sorry. This was basically from the grants that we received, the Lotteries Fest grant, as well as the state and federal government COVID support plans. Most of the COVID cash flow grants that we received was used, bulk of it was used to support toy libraries that did not have staff. So we discounted or waived insurance fee premiums for them. So in the Lottery West grant, we were able to not fully use the amount that was given, and it is sitting in an accrual to be used in the current year. Then we have the toy community financials there. We could see from what Kim was trying to explain that we had a difficult year. A lot of toy libraries were struggling to place orders. There were supplier issues, and because of which we see the revenue down a third compared to the previous year. But having said that, we were able to also reduce our operating expenses. Hence, the deficit is not as much as we could see in the year before. In all, we ended up with a healthy surplus that would be used to support more toy libraries in the current financial year. Moving on to the balance sheet, as you could see, we had an increase in our assets. Basically, our current assets are the cash and the cash equivalents, such as the term deposits. And the other assets are the debtors inventory that are sitting in toy communities. The assets were up, and we could see a minor increase in our liabilities. Hence, the total equity of the entity increased. This is basically a statement telling us the movement in cash, which was mostly from the decline in the debtors. You could see that big number, 11,000 decline there, and hence the cash position increased during the last year. The details, if you have any question, you can always email me, and these reports after the acceptance at this meeting today will be lodged with the ACNC. Thank you.
Thank you, Ritu. Does anybody have any questions on the financial statements for Ritu? No, I think we are good with that. So I will just put up the poll for the financial report. So the motion is that the financial report be accepted. Okay, thank you, everybody. So we've got 14 yes and 2 people abstaining.
Debbie, can we please also ask for somebody to move and second?
Yeah, I was just going to ask that too.
Sorry, thank you, Beck.
I'll move.
See, were we missing that from the committee report as well?
Yes.
Thank you. So that was Jane and Claire, I think, for the financial report. Can I get somebody to move and second the committee report? Belinda and Amy?
Thank you.
Thank you. And did anybody have any questions for Ritu on the financials? I'm not seeing any in the chat. Whatever. Okay, thank you very much, Ritu. And then the last item for the AGM, let me just get this up, is nomination of the committee for 2021, 2022. My gosh, that seems like a long way in the future. So I think I've got this right. It's wonderful that so many people have been putting their hands up and wanting to help, which is just lovely. So anybody yell out if I've got this wrong, but I believe I've got nominations from Amy, Annalie, Annie, Amy, is Aisha? Yep, Aisha, Belinda, Catherine, Claire, myself, Diane, Emma, Heather, Heidi, Helen, Kiara, Megan, I think, Ritu, Sarah, and Sharon. Is there anybody else who wanted to nominate themselves for the committee? I'd really like to thank you everybody for putting their names forward. It really makes, so some of these people will work on the sort of TLA committee at a national level, and as you'll see, we've got a really strong WA presence there, which wasn't the case when it was just Paul Karras even probably two years ago. So we've got a really strong team there as well, and we'll be looking to find more friends for Annalie and Belinda and Heather and everybody else as well. So can I get somebody to move the nominations for the TLA committee and subcommittees for next year? Ritu, and somebody to second it. Belinda, thank you. And I will just put the poll to approve that. Okay, so you should see the poll now.
Debbie, in the poll, I cannot see a yes or no voting. I can only see the result. Like I can see the result, but I cannot see a tab to press yes or no or abstain.
It must be hiding underneath your window somewhere else because other people are voting okay. So I'll just end this polling and share the results. So we had 16 people voting yes and 1 abstaining. Okay, so I'll just stop sharing for a while. So the final item on the agenda is any other business. We haven't been notified of any other business for the meeting. Is there anything that anybody would like to bring up or any questions? If not, I will declare the meeting closed. So